is the April 16th, 2025 Economic Development Commission meeting, and we will start off by doing a full roll call of everyone who's here. I am Laura DiDio, the chairperson.
Justin Wood.
Sean McAvoy.
Angela Achu.
Okay, and we also have with us William Blake, who is the assistant
Yep.
town administrator.
Here for staff support.
Yes, staff support, and not present this evening are Craig Dauphiné, who is the representative from the select board, and Nicole Ethier, who is on vacation. Let's see, we are opening remarks. We will be discussing continuing discussion of the EDC spring events, and we were also having a guest speaker, Craig Blazel, and I'm not sure if he's joining us by remote. I hadn't heard. It was supposedly all set. So we'll give it a minute or two.
Greg Blazel was the person that Craig Dauphiné was in contact with, was that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he's from the Worcester Business Development Commission.
Yes.
Just double checking.
So that was supposed to be all set, and as far as I know, when I spoke to Craig last week, it was, but perhaps something.
I've not heard
happened.
anything to the contrary, so.
Yeah. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes.
You could always take your agenda out of order and
Yes.
start talking about the EDC spring event, and if Craig walks in, switch back to that.
Okay. Terrific. So we will do that. Thank you. I appreciate that suggestion, William.
Very well.
So in talking to Craig, who was spearheading the spring event, which is the meet and greet for businesses at Reunion Tap and Table for Thursday, May 15th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. We have, that was all set up. Everything's a go. Craig was just negotiating the menu, and it'll be varied as we had talked about. Some hors d'oeuvres, cash bar, but drinks, things like that. As we had discussed at our prior March meeting, we will allow people to bring handouts, business cards. If anybody wanted to speak for a minute, they could, and that's what we'll be doing. William very graciously sent us the handouts for the all the business owners, the Chamber of Commerce, Tufts Business School, and what I would propose to do is that we divvy up that list. Now we have the flyers. Can we send them out via email to the business owners on the list?
Yes.
In a PDF form, can we send those out via email?
Yep, so I don't know. Do you mean all the businesses on the DBA list?
Yes.
So I don't know if we have email addresses for all of them. I can double check that. I know we have email addresses for the 55 that are on the business directory on the website. So we can always start there. And
Yes.
I can contact the clerk's office again and show we have contact information.
Okay, terrific, because then what I would suggest that we do is divvy up the list with people, for people that we know personally.
Yeah.
And whatever we choose to do, like if somebody knows somebody, like I could, for example, take Pepperoni Express, call them, go in, say hey, and extend the invitation. There are several businesses that didn't make our list, like Credence Web Services, which is near, it's in that same thing as Bread Guys, Breads.
Yep.
Go in there and invite them. They are a consulting firm. Handed out do that.
Or another thought, as I'm thinking of that, instead of, I wanna say cherry picking, okay? Cause if we were to say, okay, I know this guy, I know that guy, I know this guy, so this is North Grafton, South Grafton, this is Upton line type of
Mhm.
thing. I would almost say we maybe look at the business list, and if you can, and geographically say, okay, all right, I am in North Grafton near the bread guy. Give me the names of the businesses in that neighborhood, we'll call it, and I'll canvass the neighborhood. And if you're in South Grafton, you can say, okay, let me canvass South Grafton, as opposed to you and I going like this to talk to the different businesses. I'm not saying the personal one-on-one isn't a good thing, but I'm just saying we may miss, as opposed to canvassing or blanket covering the businesses.
Yeah, I was having a similar thought. I was hoping to have time this week, but I didn't. But to try to take this list that the DA's office gave us that we were looking for, and it's going, okay, well, how many are in Northcote? How many are in South? And this is a list of those in this area, and try to get a divided up list of, okay, well, here's 25 in this half-mile radius. Here's 20. Here's another 25 in this radius, and that way,
Yeah.
we could do that. The personal connections is still good. Like you could say, did so and so drop off it to you? If you talk to someone that a business owner, often you can do that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
that
well,
was-
what we should do then, what I would propose to do, and we've got two people who are not here,
Mm-hmm.
is amongst ourselves, look at the list. You've got what, 55 people where you say you have emails for them?
Oh, yeah, we have roughly 55 listings on the website for the business directory that people can request to be added to. And in
Okay.
that, we ask for email addresses.
Okay, so we can send those out, and we won't necessarily have to canvass them.
Yeah,
Then what's left, we can divvy up amongst ourselves, and maybe we can get on line or do a Zoom meeting, or just email amongst ourselves to divvy it up, as you say,
yeah.
by geographic region.
Right.
Angela, what do you think of that?
I think that's a great idea, Laura.
Okay.
I think it
Sean
makes a
thought
lot
it
of
up,
good
it's not
sense.
my idea. Yeah, no, that's fine, and I mean, where we don't have the names, like somebody like my friend Anita Was, of Credence Web Services, I've told her about it, so that's one thing. And then, do we have, how recent, William, is the list? So for example, where the post office pub is there, that new business that used to be occupied, the storefront that used to be occupied by Erickson's Hardware, which is now
The Lego store?
Lego.
the Lego store, are they on there?
They call Brickworks, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brickworks is not on the list that I had, so the initial list I got was from late February from the clerk's office.
Okay, so who's ever in, that would be North, that would be North Grafton. There's a lot in North Grafton.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, the only comment I have for trying to figure out who's taking what and where we're going is I would avoid a Zoom meeting, because that has a higher chance of being an open meeting issue.
okay,
But
That's
I
fine.
think coordinating where we're going via email as a group, I think as long as we stick to just the coordination,
Yeah.
there's no, to me, there's no open meeting issue.
No, we're not.
Because we're not discussing anything really, we're
Right.
just
yeah, we're just,
coordinating.
we're just coordinating, yeah.
I just got a text that Craig Blaze was up at the municipal center
Oh,
and is
okay.
on his way
Oh.
down, so I'm gonna
Oh.
step out and flag him.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, okay, so that
We're
works.
not, to your point, we're not discussing, we're just saying, hey, I'm gonna hit these 10 businesses.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then you might say, well, wait a minute, what about the new guy, the brickworks,
Yeah.
the Lego people?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't, just, that's all,
Yeah.
I think we just,
To me,
we're not voting on it, we're just
that's
saying
pretty
who's
fine.
going where.
The open meeting comes into play, like if we discuss anything that's,
Yeah.
related to our business in general. And that's why I think Zoom is a little bit riskier, because there's,
Yeah.
in the worst case, we have paper trail for doing emails.
Mm-hmm.
And,
So, well, how about, if he can, I don't wanna say hard copy. He messages us in email lists, and we can look at the list and say, okay, I can hit this, this, and this. And via email, I can say, okay, I can hit these businesses, you're gonna go through the list and say, oh, well, this guy's right down, my neighborhood.
Yep.
If we do it that way.
Yeah.
And that way there,
It's the-
once you go through the list, if I'm replying to all, and I've highlighted all the ones,
Yeah.
by the time we finish our conversation or our messages, if all the names of the businesses are highlighted, then we know they're all covered.
Yes.
and yeah, like I said, I don't have
Okay.
any concern on that.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi,
Ron
Craig.
Williams.
How are you?
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep, nice to meet
We
you.
appreciate it.
Hi, Craig Blaze.
Sean Lambert.
And Justin Wood.
Justin Craig Blaze. We met out.
I'm Laura DiDio, by the
No,
way.
we have
Laura
one of
is-
our members on Zoom. Angela.
Oh, okay.
And Angela H.U.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Great.
So, we were just discussing our spring event, meet and greet that we're having on May 15th at the Reunion Tap and Table.
Oh, great.
So you might, be interested in coming to that, and seeing folks, but, but we'll table that for right now, because I know we had you down as the first speaker. I'm
Sure.
sorry for any confusion.
Yeah, I was at
We only-
I was at two different conferences. I was told to go to conference room F.
Well, yes, and what
Yeah.
happened was, we only found out, sort of late in the game, that conference room F was not gonna be available because of ongoing construction.
Yeah, it looks like. it's
So
a
I
mess in
thought
there.
somebody would have, I thought Craig would have told
He
you.
did. He told me to go to A. So I went to conference room A and I sat in the back, and then the town manager got up and said, I think you're supposed to be down at the GCTV.
Oh.
I said, where is that? So anyway, it's
Yeah,
fine. I'm
this is
here. It's
the
fine.
old, this is the old Gresham.
Police station.
Yeah, police station.
yeah.
Anyway, so tell us about
Sure.
what you're doing and how
Yeah.
we might be able to
Sure.
work together and,
So I guess first off, have any of you ever heard of the Worcester Business Development Corporation?
yes.
Yeah, okay, so you're familiar that we were the developer of Centec Park.
Yep.
All phases, all three phases, Centec Park East and then Centec Park North up at the Allen Farm Estates. And we sort of drove, many years ago, we drove the issue of Centec Park Boulevard because we needed better access in order to develop the park, and we essentially rode the coattails of the commuter rail station to say we need to have better access, and better access will mean we'll be able to develop the park. So obviously, all three phases, we purchased it all from the Commonwealth, and it got developed, and you know all of that. The WBDC has been around, we're in our 60th year, believe it or not. We were formed in 1965 by an act of the legislature. And we have our own, we're a private real estate development company, but we're a nonprofit. And I like to say that we sit between the private sector and the public sector. The public sector likes us because we're nonprofit. The private sector likes us because we're not the public sector. And so we sit right in the middle, and what we try to do is take on difficult projects or projects that are stalled or projects that are important to a community within Worcester County. We try to take those projects on and bring in very varying ways. We keep it very open and nimble because in real estate, you've got to figure out ways to be in compliance with grants and be compliance with what a real estate developer needs in terms of lending and all of that, guarantees. So we have multiple models where in some instances we own the development, we take title to the property. In other instances, we're a development partner where we bring certain resources to the deal. In some instances, we acquire the property, clean it up, and ground lease the property because the developer does not want to take the risk of the environmental contamination that's on the property. So we've kept that in over the last 60 years and used those models in very various ways in order to make the project work. But our number one priority is that we only take on the projects that a community wants to do. We're no good if we're in fighting with the community because we need the community to go out and help us get grants, help us get a loan guarantee from Mass Development, or whatever it is, whatever the resource is. And so we try to operate that way. And for us, it's not about profit. It's about job creation and tax base expansion. So if a private developer comes in and because of our work makes a gazillion dollars and creates a lot of jobs and expands, that's okay. We get evaluated by our board and judged on the fact that we've created jobs and expanded the tax base in the region. So that gives you a little bit of a sort of a history, and I can go into some examples, like you're familiar with Centec. In that instance, we acquired the property from DCAM, from the Commonwealth. We figured out a way to get a release of that property so that we could do, essentially at that time, it was the State Street Bank deal on the data center, which was very important to the development. And we were able to essentially knock off each individual parcel and get those redeveloped, and of course always working with in close parts with the town of Shrewsbury, with the town of Grafton. In Worcester, for example, we took on the Hanover Theater. That was a much different model. The Hanover Theater, they needed a developer to take on, and we needed to set up a 501c3 nonprofit organization that could accept the property from the owner, and at the time it was Viacom owned the property, National Amusement owned the property, and we negotiated with the Redstones to transfer the property to a nonprofit, and it had to be in the right ownership structure because we were doing a new market tax deal. And so we led the effort on putting all the complicated financial pieces together in the capital stack. We raised $30 million, and the city wanted to bring the old theater back to a performing arts theater. And we served all the way through that as the developer. We took a retainer fee out of the financing. That's how we were paid to provide that service. And then in that instance, at the very end of the deal, we gave the entire fee back and donated it into the Hanover Theater. We essentially bought a loge box and made a substantial contribution back into the theater because they needed to raise more money in order to make the whole entire deal work. So in that instance, we didn't create a lot of jobs, but it was revitalization of a critical area in Worcester at the time and bringing all the people. We then got involved in the Canal District where there was a factory that had been abandoned for 10 years and the roof was caving in. It was a brownfield site. They hadn't done anything there in 10 years, and it was really starting to become a real problem for that area of the city. We got the 10 colleges together along with Worcester Academy, and we formed a group. They were looking for ice time for their hockey programs. So we thought, wow, this would be great if we could bring all of the colleges together. They didn't have the land that was needed on their individual campuses, nor did they want to expend money to build a hockey rink, but there was a need for ice time for the youth hockey organizations and the revitalization of that area. So we pulled all that together. We got them all to contribute. We purchased the property for $1 from the previous owner, and we essentially had traded indemnification of the site, and we got involved in breaking the chain of liability, and we acquired the property for $1. They wrote us a check for $400,000 and got out of it. They were 100% out of the deal, and then we took it from there. We raised $3.8 million. We tore the factory down, cleaned up all the property, and then in that instance, the developer, Rucker Investments, Cliff Rucker, who had just brought the railers to Worcester, needed a place to train. They weren't going to train at the at the DCU Center. So he figured out that he would be an anchor tenant, and he didn't wanna own the land, cause he didn't wanna take the risk of the brownfields. So we ground leased the property, so today we own the rink, under a ground lease. He developed it, and he has tenants. He has all the colleges, he has Worcester Academy, he has all the, and it's doing very, very well. And the rail is trained there, they have public skating, and they have 38,000 square feet of retail space at the site. So I bring those examples up because they're all different models in which the way we operate. I know that Craig was interested in, sort of picking my brain about Tufts. We have been involved in the park. We offered 3 times to partner with them. Early on at Centec Park, we said, why don't we put it all together and we'll split the proceeds 50-50. So we had just acquired the property from DCAN. They were under the same complicated ground lease that we were under, and we offered to go back to the Commonwealth and say, why don't you just release all of us from the ground lease requirement, and then we'll do this in phases, because Centec was ready to go. The town had done a great job with putting the roads and the water and the infrastructure. Let's get that done. We'll share in the proceeds, and then we'll move over to the next piece, and we'll put all the roads in, we'll get the right grants, we'll put all that together, and then we'll just keep going. We'll just keep going. For whatever reason, they passed on that, they didn't wanna do that. We went back again and tried. It seems like every time the administration changes, there's like a rethinking that maybe, it would be a good idea to do a partnership. So I explained that all, that we would still be open if they were interested. We're done with all 3 phases of Centec. The last piece, I believe, was sold off at Centec Park North at Allen Farm. And we were involved with that because we brought Wuxi Biologics, who we're doing that in Worcester. They needed a warehouse space there, so we referred them to Centec Park North. So, so that any type of way that we can, be helpful to the commission, be helpful to the town, and it doesn't have to be that project, but if there are other, projects that are stuck or stalled or need some help, there might be some way, in which we could lend a hand and help.
Were you involved in the mill?
Fisherville Mill.
In South Grafton?
Yes, a little bit different from the WBDC. At the time, I was working for the city of Worcester in the development office, and we created an organization called the Central Mass Economic Development Authority,
Yeah.
SMEDA, which you might be aware of. When we got that legislation through, we identified the legislature only allowed us to do 3 projects. They didn't want the authority to go off and get in trouble, essentially. Because we really didn't have a staff. We were kind of piecing it together. So that, as I recall, it's a long time ago, you're tapping my memory, but as I recall, the 3 projects were the Mass 10 truck stop in Auburn, and they were involved. The Courtyard by Marriott in Worcester on Prescott Street, that hadn't been built yet. It was a Parker manufacturing property that was contaminated, and the Fisherville Mill. We got asked to be involved in Auburn, and that got done. The truck stop was closed, and it all got redeveloped, and today it's a retail redevelopment. We were obviously very interested in being involved in Worcester, and we had Procon at the time that was interested in building the hotel, and we took title to the property, and we brought resources to it. We cleaned up the property, and then we flipped it to Procon, and they built the Courtyard by Marriott at Gateway Park in Worcester. We were not asked to be part of the Fisherville Bill for whatever reason. The organization said that they were going to do it on their own, and so we were not asked to be part of that. And then the fire happened. The fire, and so that was sort of the end of our involvement with that. But I believe it's still under the Central Mass Economic. I don't know. I don't know where title rests. They were going to sell it, and I kind of lost track as to where it was. But yes, in the very beginning, I was involved in that.
Yeah, so I'm sure Craig has sort of filled you in that we're trying to jumpstart things here
Sure.
in Grafton. Of course, as everyone knows, you know, Grafton has some unique, challenges, because we're not Shrewsbury
Right,
or Westboro. We don't have Route 9 running through it. So, most of our tax base comes from private residential things, and everybody's seeing that go up and away.
yeah,
And so the citizens, you know, say, well, what is the EDC doing?
Right.
So we're actively looking for ways to
Sure.
jumpstart that, and, you know, anything we can do to work together, you know,
yeah,
piggyback off ideas you might have.
Sure.
Give us, you know, ideas. In the past, we did have, a meet and greet, a year ago, January. We also, the prior year, had a business luncheon over at Tufts where we invited prospective.
I think I was at that. I think I
Yes, you
attended
probably
that.
were.
Yeah,
Senator Mike Moore
Yep.
was there, Dave Maradian.
yeah. New Dean, I think at
Yeah.
Tufts at the time, yeah.
So, but, you know, again, a lot of the things, for whatever reason, have not gelled or come together, and there's been
I
some
would say, you
turnover.
know, Tufts can speak for themselves, but
Yes,
the deal structure that they have, if that is still in place, was the same deal structure that my predecessors accepted at Centec One, which was this complicated ground lease payment to and it's the way it was bid, and when we tried to work under that, and we did a whole analysis, this is the WBDC, did a whole analysis of, if we did everything perfect and we sold all the parcels under that formula, we'd lose like $225,000. So why would we do that? Why would we go through that whole, and the Commonwealth would get all the money, they would essentially get all the money. So we recognized that early on, and we knew that formula, well, it all sounded good to DCAM when they set it up, and it did sounded good to the WBDC because you didn't have to put any money up front. So what we did is we said to the Commonwealth, why don't you take less, because you don't have to wait, getting the money sooner, but less money sooner, the cost of money, it would be in your best interest to just get bought out and give us the release and let us take the risk and go forward and do what we got. And then we don't have this ground lease hovering over where the middle person has to make money, you have to pay the Commonwealth money, and then the develop, so it just, for our market, it doesn't work. So, we said, we had the State Street Bank deal pending, and we had gotten an offer, and we said, okay, here's what we'll do, is let us close on that deal, and then we'll pay you X amount of dollars, proceeds from that deal, and then we're out, you're out, you release us from everything, and we'll go off and develop and then we met with Verilon, and we met with, if you remember, Bernie Doe, and we did that deal, and then we did the IDEX deal, and then Primary Colors, so we were left to just do a thing, and that worked out very well for us. It worked out good, we were released, the Commonwealth was paid, and we sold the parcels, and we had full control over the parcels, which is key, you know, to getting them redeveloped fast. And we knew the town wanted to get, you know, they wanted to get the tax revenue and get the jobs and all of that. So, that should be looked at, because that's you know, the infrastructure's in over there, and I think it could be a nice development. And the access from Route 20 is now there.
Yep.
Of course, the commuter rail, as you know.
Yes.
So,
The other thing that comes to mind to me is several years back, like 4 or 5 years back, I think it was now, the Wyman Gordon was selling the property right in front of them,
Yes.
which someone did buy. They went through a long and arduous permitting process, which didn't involve a lot of happy neighbors,
Okay,
but they did it. They designed a big warehouse on spec, and of course, since they got the permit passed, there was a lawsuit which the developers won, and then on that process. But there was also a downturn in profitability of spec warehousing.
sure, yeah,
So that comes to mind as something that, to my last I had heard, the owners of the land had reapproached Wyman Gordon to ask them if they wanted to buy it back. They didn't.
right,
And then, you know, so they're sitting on land that is in theory developable.
Yeah.
It may not be profitable to develop as they permitted it, but that I could imagine there being something else that could be developed there
Sure.
that would be
Yes.
beneficial to the
I would
community.
put that in your column of
Yes.
inventory to work on,
The-
absolutely.
The issue there, okay, with that, when that went around the first time, was the lack of transparency with the process. The lawyers came in, they didn't say who they were working for, the process,
Yeah.
it was gonna be a warehouse,
Sure,
24/7.
Yep.
Who was, the state would have to come in and help support the road. Of course, the residents, many of whom were new residents, were saying, well, we didn't know that this has been,
Yeah, and
it
it was a,
zoned for industrial, so they filed the lawsuit.
Sure.
yep, and
So-
they brought it to us as a spec warehouse, which the planning board did, worked really hard, I'm on the planning board, just to be clear, but worked really hard to narrow the scope of what we actually put in our decision to make sure that it wasn't going to be a last mile facility,
Yep.
the traffic, aligned with what they actually told us, because it was spec, they didn't have a client.
Didn't have a tenant.
They told us,
Yeah.
they might have had one ready,
Right.
but
Right.
I don't know. But they never told us, they don't necessarily have to, but that's
Yeah.
Again, the residents weren't happy with it, but that's sitting there. The permit, I believe, is still valid due to the very recently passed state law that extended permits by 2 years. So I think it's still valid, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that, I would just say from I don't know the details of the impacts on the residential, but the proximity, obviously, to the Mass Turnpike, and to Route 20, I've always looked at that, area as a hurdle, on the brownfields, but if that's not, I don't know what the conditions are for the front part of the piece,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah,
There is substantial environmental, having dealt with the ballpark,
Yeah.
Yes.
in Worcester and
well,
Wyman Gordon.
it didn't help at the time that there was a fire at the Wyman Gordon, plant in the back towards,
Was it there, or was it the warehouse right across the town line in Millbury? Is it the one you're referring to?
The most recent fire that I remember that was anything more than just like a fire extinguisher could have put out was at the warehouse, which was in Tennessee
No.
Millbury.
Yeah.
Millbury line, yeah.
yeah, and the other thing, that got people riled up, totally separate issue, was the Feedback Earth plant. And that's been resolved, they're out of business, but people wonder what else is gonna come in.
Yeah.
So there's a heightened sensitivity. The town wants business to come in, but you
Sure.
want clean business,
Sure,
maybe bio, life sciences.
not a good time to be in that,
Yes, I know.
It'd be in
Tech
that
warehouse, tech business, building wouldn't be bad for this general area of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But again, that's also on the downturn as far as physical office locations for tech.
Yes. We're trying to market, the Norton property, I don't know if you've read about that, the
Yeah.
Green Tech Park. We're trying to market that to advanced manufacturing, and it's gonna take a while. We've been told, be patient. Obviously, green technologies right now is not where the federal government's going, so
Right.
a lot of people are just sitting back on the sidelines right now. Fortunately, we've structured that deal where we can be patient and wait a little while, for that. But if you think, for those of you who know, that was the place where all the jobs were. A Norton company, a Heel Machine employed 7,000 people
Yes.
on that property. So Worcester doesn't have many opportunities left to create jobs like that. So we're gonna hold out as long as we can. We've got plenty of work to do. We're tearing down all the buildings, we're putting all the roads in, we're cleaning up the property, we're doing all that. But we're gonna hold out, but that's easy to say when you acquire it for $1 and you
Yeah,
don't have
of
a
course.
mortgage on the property and you're not carrying,
Yeah.
So, but what was in terms of, did you look at the feedback, in terms of the transparency of the residents? Like, was there comments about what they would like to see there, in that parcel?
It was more reactionary, I think.
It was mostly
Yeah.
reaction.
To be
It was
against
a
the-
wide range.
yeah.
Some of that came for like the last 3 years before this came before the planning board, it was basically a vacant lot, not used for anything except for maybe once a year, the pet stone.
The pet rock
Pet
thing.
rock.
It's
ceremony.
Soccer,
And
yeah,
then,
the soccer
and then
thing.
for like 10, 15 years before that, it was used by local soccer and
Yeah.
athletic groups. It's geese, a field that has a lot of geese poop in it, but it's basically it's been used for that.
Yeah,
But otherwise it's been a completely empty. Occasionally used like open space.
and was that ever part of their operation, way back?
I don't think they ever had any business.
So it's always
or
been
even
like the
parking lot
front
there.
lawn of.
Yeah, so it was a very nice bucolic
Yep.
thing, and they
Yep.
always had nice plantings there, so yes.
Yep.
So people would have, when they bought their homes, whether it be new residents or long-term residents, it would have been thought of as open space, because of course, not many people, unless they are in this kind of environment, think about, what is this zoned as next door to me?
Right,
Yeah,
but it has great, for your purposes, economic development, it just, you kill for access like that to the turnpike.
Yes, exactly.
You really
yes,
do. If you can figure out a way to be patient, you could get the right, get the right mix there. And like we are resisting warehouse, we're resisting warehouse, last mile, all that.
Yep.
We've gotten a lot of offers, cause we're right on 190.
Yeah.
We're right there. And, we just said no. We actually had you might know him, but we had a box manufacturer that wanted to build a 200,000 square foot plant there. And good for them, it's all automated, 21 jobs. So I'm gonna take up 200,000 square feet of property and create 21 jobs. And it's a
Yeah.
great thing to have it would be great taxpayer and all that, but, that's not, So Worcester would have a different view in terms of high density employment where you might not have that.
Yep.
You might take something like that, where it had a very low impact, although a lot of trucks,
Yes.
for a box manufacturer.
and then we've had a couple of setbacks, because as you go up the street there, we've had a couple of the smaller shopping plazas where
Sure.
there have been issues, there were fires and things like that, and, so a couple of the, what was it, Pub 22 there moved out, and I think, where are they
Yeah.
now, they in Worcester?
No, I think I don't know.
He moved,
There
it was an Indian restaurant, but there,
Yeah.
but some of those things, we lost some businesses there.
Yeah.
Some
Even right
things have
near
changed,
Centec
yeah.
Park, 8 Pine Street has been sitting in they did a demolition process to meet for the permit. It's gonna be like housing apartments kind of thing for the most part. There was a separate building that was part of their phase 2 that had potential for shops, but
This is
Is
at
it-
the train station?
this is across the street from the train
Yeah,
station.
yeah.
It-
We put a proposal in to buy that property from the state
Yeah.
way
and-
back, a long, long time
But-
ago. And that was a complicated,
Yeah, so
there was a
there's,
federal lease on the property.
Yep.
The state owned the property,
it was, very complicated.
very complicated. So I assumed, I was gonna bring that up, so I assumed that all got straightened out and cleared up and a private a private developer owns that now?
Last I knew, it was GSX that had done the initial purchase and came to the planning board to get the permitting to do that, housing development
Yep.
and everything. I don't know offhand if GSX has since sold it or handed off development to another company.
They haven't sold it. I think that they're hoping to break ground sometime this summer.
Yeah, I have heard a few anecdotal comments that might suggest that they're breaking ground maybe with a different company doing the actual work, but I don't wanna speak out of turn when I don't know for sure, but.
Yeah, and then Claremont, right, has bought, on the other side
Yes,
of those, is there any plans, for that to proceed? That was,
I think
That was
Claremont is
multifamily.
permitted, but I haven't heard that they've actually have any
They were
immediate
waiting
plans
for
to pull
some-
permits and
they
stuff.
were waiting for some MBTA impact, funding to connect, this is what I heard, to connect the, property to the rail station.
Yeah, that was in their proposal to the planning board, and
Yeah.
I have not heard that they pulled any permits for building department or anything as far as even demolition.
I would just tell you for
clearing.
advice, they're the real deal. They own the AC Marriott in downtown Worcester, and, they're looking to do some more stuff, and they're well capitalized, and they're a good developer.
If that's what I think it is, I believe our town planner just got a grant
Yes,
to connect the property.
I think he did.
I-
I
That
think
she
yes.
did. to connect the
I was
property to the.
referring to the manager told me, yeah, the
Yeah.
town manager told me that. So, yeah, I
Like-
believe so. It's MBTA impact funding or
I
something.
think so. I think
Yeah.
it's like $1.5 million to connect them. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
So hopefully
Yeah.
that's going forward.
Yeah, but I'm anticipating within the next probably full year, they'll have pulled at least, a permit or two to make progress on that.
I'll just tell you, I held out there for we own that property, and I held out for a long, long time. And you probably know this, but, there is a pile of ledge there that is
Yes.
substantial. We could only fit a 20,000 square foot building on that. We tried and tried and tried, and if you talk to anybody in the development world, no one very rarely do they build a 20,000 square foot
Yeah.
building
The-
in an industrial park. It's just, you would go lease
Not
that
feasible,
space.
yeah.
You'd just go lease that space. And the site conditions were so bad that finally I just sort of, I don't wanna say gave up, but just said, if the town's okay with putting housing because of the rail and transit-oriented development and all that,
Yeah.
let it go, because otherwise it'll just sit there.
Yeah,
And-
there'll be a lot of blasting going on there. I know
Yeah.
the owner of Primary Colors wasn't too happy with the blasting statement, but from what we worked out in the
Yeah,
thing,
it's
they
just a lot
started to
of
work together.
knowledge. And then I just have another question. Is part of the UPS facility, is it most of that in Grafton and some in Shrewsbury, or
I think it's like 70-30, right?
I thought
70/30
it was like closer to
Grafton?
60-40 as far as building
Yeah,
goes, and probably 70-30 when you consider actual developed land space.
well, that'll be a big tax revenue.
Yes.
And, I don't wanna say it too loud in Shrewsbury, but you don't get the impacts,
We,
because the trucks all go out to
we
Shrewsbury.
do have a pretty substantial impact on the intersection right closest to the train station, but we also have impacts there due to other developments, but
Yeah.
the UPS did agree to, as part of, in the permitting process, give the town, I think, $750,000 to develop and implement an actual lighting system at that intersection.
Of Route 30.
Route 30 and
Pine.
Pine, yes.
I don't think they're gonna go that way, though. Don't you think they're
The-
gonna go out to 20?
Tractor trailers, 20 almost guaranteed.
20.
There is last mile going on at that UPS facility.
Oh, I see. So
there
they'll-
are- there's gonna be some coming this way.
Yeah. But that's great tax revenue for
Yes.
the town.
Yes, and we need all we can.
Boy,
we
they
can-
are, they're moving, huh? I drove by there.
They're
Wow.
almost done with their clearing.
Yeah, the site work that's going on there is,
Evan and I drove by 3 weeks ago, I think, and from then to now, they were halfway done to completely done, pretty much.
They're
It's great.
they're looking in the next, from what Fiona told us on Monday, looking in the next month, I think she said, to actually start doing some of the site development work, not just the clearing.
foundation and pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd
So
be a
we're
big
looking,
foundation.
we're looking for something to jumpstart, it'd be great if we could have a polar park, but that's a,
Yeah. The other site that comes to mind, and I don't know if you've had discussions, but it's probably worth a meeting, a discussion, is, so State Street Bank has a second parcel in Centec Park. A lot of people don't know that. They bought the first parcel on the right, when you come up, Centennial Drive.
Yes.
And they never built, they were supposed to build a 56,000 square foot facility there. It's a back office operation, again, low impact, but good tax revenue to the community. Things changed after 9/11, and that's when we were in the middle of all that with them.
Mhm.
So that got put on hold, but of course that was 25 years ago now,
And the
24
banking,
years ago.
2008,
I'm sorry?
the banking situation
Yeah.
in 2008 as well.
A lot of changes have happened, so I don't know if State Street would ever, sell that, or, but it would be a good opportunity for redevelopment. And now that the road, when we did that, Centec Boulevard was not in, so now you could reverse that site and have it on Centec Boulevard, and,
Yep.
there's a lot of options there, and it's a pretty nice site, it's a good site.
Mm.
And then there's another site, right, 6A, which is adjacent across the street from Primary Colors.
Oh, yes.
And that was, I know there was a grow facility that was proposed there for a while, and
Oh, yes.
I don't know whatever happened, but that's still that's a nice site at the end of Millennial.
Yeah, I know there is somebody that, I don't remember if they actually started development, but was basically wrapping primary colors like around the side of them they were looking for building a like industrial use building. They're using only like about 30% of it. They're going to lease out the other amount to some future tenant, and then the intent of the owner of that was that his business could grow into the space over time. But I don't remember if they built that out yet or not, but that was
Are you talking about primary colors?
literally next to it, primary colors.
Yeah, when you go up the driveway to the right.
Yep.
There's a whole parcel there.
Yeah, it was, the entrance to that was in the cul-de-sac for what I was thinking of.
Yeah. So there's still a couple of opportunities at Centec to be redeveloped.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Angela, did you have anything you'd like to ask or add?
Thank you, Laura. I've just been taking notes through this, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating to hear about the opportunities that we have within town. So it's great to be able to have Craig here tonight to share his experience and his insights with us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'd like to find a way, quite frankly, for us to be able to, you know,
Yeah,
partner and piggyback off of that in, you know, in really
well, I think,
practical
you know, the reason why we
terms.
kept going back to Tufts is because
Yes.
we brought the water there, and we put the infrastructure in, and we put the access in, and all of that's, you know, I believe they had brought it all the way through the MEPA approval process, so they have all the state permits in place. It's, what do you wanna do with this? Like, do you want it university related, or do you wanna let it go and help the town and just
Well, that's
get
been,
it developed?
that's been the big conundrum. And Carl Moisen, who's another member who is,
Oh, I know Carl.
Yeah. who's not here tonight, I mean, he was the chairperson here
Yep.
prior to myself. He knew a lot about that, and it, you know, it's inequitable, you know, because Grafton does not profit nearly as much as it could or it should from the presence of Tufts.
Mhm.
That's I'm not,
Well, sure, it's just like,
yeah, I'm not editorializing, it's
No.
just a fact.
yeah,
And given the fact that we are not Westboro or Shrewsbury on a Route 9 or directly on a Route 30 or a Route 20, that presents some challenges. And we are, you know, we have some very vital, thriving small businesses here. But the bigger challenge is that we have a lot of single-family McMansions being built.
Yeah.
That are raising, of course,
Yeah.
the property taxes,
sure.
and that becomes a challenge
Do you have a
for
single rate? Do you have a split rate or a single rate?
Single rate.
single.
rate.
Yep.
What
Which
is
is
it,
good.
like $16?
I think it's 1541 this year.
1541, yeah.
1541, just so you know, is a TIF in Worcester. So that's really good that you know, Dan Morgado, if you remember Dan Morgado, used to say to me all the time, no TIFs in Shrewsbury, we already have a TIF, we have a $14 tax rate. And he's right, right, and
Yeah.
we have cheaper power,
Mhm.
than anybody else.
Yeah.
Well,
and we
Shrewsbury,
have great access.
Shrewsbury has its own power.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, we
Yeah,
have cheaper
so-
power than National Grid.
Mhm.
1394.
Yeah.
Is the current
He was,
tax rate.
and
Yes.
when I was running around with it, it was 14, so
Yeah.
they did so good. But I just think like, I think about like Gateway Park, right? So Gateway Park was a contaminated site right off of 290, and we partnered with WPI, and WPI helped us land Siemens there, for example, and that now WPI has some, programs there, they take some of the space, but they leased the rest of the space to private companies, they have to pay taxes, they're not exempt because WPI owns it. So that model, you know, partnering with, like, I'm sure in some industry, people wanna be located near the veterinary school. And so we should try to crack that, you know, like, and
Exactly.
obviously they have to be cooperative, if they're not, you know, they
Mhm.
hold the card. But again, that's worth a.
I know,
discussion.
that's the conundrum. How do you move off the dime?
Yeah.
Is there any way, you know?
Yeah, and what's
Um,
their interest? Like, you know, IDEX, for example, IDEX was located on Tufts campus. And they came to me and said, would you build a building for IDEX? And I was like, what? Why do you wanna give up IDEX? They're on your campus. And they, for whatever reason, the way what they were doing there, what they were programming there, they didn't want a veterinary testing facility. To this day, I'm still perplexed. So I said, I'll take IDEX. So we found a developer and we built the building on the corner. And it was very easy to do that deal because they had the tenant. They had a triple credit rated tenant with IDEX and they were taking half the building. So easy deal to get done. That was an easy deal to get done. And I was always like, I guess maybe they thought, well, it's right here. It's not like it's going far away. It's just going across the street. And then it freed up space on the campus, and I don't know what they ended up doing, backfilling that space. But companies like that want to be near, you know, they want to be near Tufts.
Right.
So can we find more IDEXs, for example, for the other property, which would help the town? You
And
know?
then, of course, there was a vision of build 100,000 square foot, you know, facility across from the, you know, where the state hospital was, but you need 30% tenancy to buy in before you can even break ground.
Does the lab pay taxes? The biohazard lab?
I haven't heard that they don't, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
So, you know, it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do everything we can
Sure.
to move forward. You know, and especially, and look, let's face it, we're in very volatile, challenging economic
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So we want all the help that we can get. So I would love it to continue the conversation.
Yeah.
And if you know, attend our meet and greet and maybe, you know,
Sure, so when is that?
it's Thursday, May 15th, between
5:30.
5:30 to 8 p.m. and it's gonna be at Reunion Tap and
Where is that?
it's right on one
Street?
yeah,
Worcester Street
Worcester
in
Street
Grafton, so
in Grafton.
Oh,
it's almost right next to where I was talking about for the warehouse near Wyman Gordon's.
Yeah,
It's on
yeah.
that street.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know where it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called before.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't
so
remember what it's called.
we're gonna have a lot of businesses there. When we did the first one in January of 2024, when it was late January and it was cold, we had a good turnout. I'd say we had, you know,
And just describe so who gets invited to that and what's
the Grafton businesses.
okay,
You know, many of the people there. We invited Dave Maradian. We'll invite this time around Senator Mike Moore, Jim McGovern,
yep,
folks like that. And, you know, the idea is to get people talking and
yep.
exchanging ideas.
Well, I have a great relationship with all three of them.
Well, hopefully,
So
hopefully,
we work
hopefully
closely
they'll
with-
all come. I'm tasked with, reaching out to,
So all
To
you
them.
have to do is tell him he's gonna
Right,
be
tell
there.
them
Yes.
Meridian and more, and
Yeah.
McGovern, I'll be there, no.
yeah. McGovern has been very busy in Washington and
Yeah,
also
obviously,
holding a lot of
very easy.
meet
He's
and
been
greets
helping,
and-
just so you know, he's been helping us with, he's really done an
He's-
incredible
he's-
job of, Wuxi Biologics, they, this is a $300 million facility being built in Worcester. It's, almost done.
Is that, excuse me, on Belmont Street?
Yes,
The new
what's
one.
called the Reactory, yeah,
Yes.
that's our development, so
Yeah.
we
Mhm.
we bought the land from the Commonwealth and we put the road in and did all the permits, tore all the old state hospital buildings down. And we recruited this company with a lot of work, Karen Polito, and really helped us a lot. They made, we went through a very competitive process, we were going head to head with Pennsylvania. This was either gonna go outside of Philadelphia or it was gonna come to Massachusetts. And we convinced, Karen did a great job and Jim McGovern did a great job of convincing the Commonwealth that the Massachusetts proposal was the Worcester proposal. And once you get that, now it's just, you gotta compete with Pennsylvania. So, we put our best foot forward, and we won, and we got it. They borrowed the money, and they started substantial construction, everything was going great, and then Congress got involved in this whole anti-China movement, and they put them on a list. And it was a company that's on the list is Wuxi Aptech, which is not Wuxi Biologics, and because there's a city in China named Wuxi, and they're named after that, and so they got put on this list, and it was about selling secrets, a genome secret. They don't even do genomics at Wuxi Biologics. They manufacture proteins for cancer drugs. So here we are going to manufacture in Worcester, Massachusetts, proteins for cancer drugs. They get put on this list that anybody who does business with them cannot receive any federal NIH money. So that's it. They're blackballed and they're done. The project gets put on hold. It's over, and it's not the right company. So we had to get them off the list and try to convince.
And that's always hard.
The entities
Yeah,
list.
and Jim McGovern did a phenomenal job of using his clout to essentially get them off the list. And he got them off, and he's monitored it, and he's kept it. And now the time was on our side because the Department of Defense had finished their analysis and determined that Wuxi Biologics did not belong on the list. So now the Department of Defense has come out with the list, not Congress. The Department of Defense has come out, and Wuxi's not on it. So it's a victory. Construction's back going.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that done. 300 jobs. It's just an incredible facility, and what they're gonna be doing there is really important. So he's just done a great job, and now he's been on the hunt to help us. Essentially, we've been awarded $6.4 million in federal money for the Saint-Gobain project, and we've been told by the EPA and by EDA, reimbursement's not guaranteed. So I went out and borrowed the money, and we're doing the work, and then we're gonna seek reimbursement from the grants, and we're told that might be on hold, they might not release the money, and all this stuff. So he's helping us through that whole process with the
Federal
EPA.
grants are right now
It's
it's
a
worse than playing the
nightmare.
lottery.
Yeah, really.
You know, it's I mean, what's going on with NIH
Yeah.
and the NSF even. You know, I have friends there, and you know, it is really tough. And here in Grafton, again, we have some very distinct and somewhat unique challenges where, you know, people want quality of life, they want the open spaces, they want this, but they also want, you know, business to come in, and then they want the right kind of business, and
And we're trying to build manufacturing space.
Yes.
And we've been at it for 9.5 years. So we're not gonna just turn the switch on and manufacturing's gonna pop up all over this.
Right.
We don't have the right power, we don't have the right water, we don't have the right sewer.
Mhm.
All that has to be brought back and updated, and it takes it's 10
Yes.
years it takes, to go through that
And
kind of.
Manufacturing is
process.
also a full supply chain issue. It's not, you can't just build a building and say, hey, we're gonna make cell phones now.
Right, that's right. That's exactly right. So I don't buy this, we're just gonna do tariffs and then manufacturing's gonna be all over the United States. It's not that easy.
no,
It's not
and
that
we have our own infrastructure problems.
Sure.
Issues here in Grafton,
Yeah.
water,
Yep.
sewer, the usual,
Yeah.
things, so
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
we need help, we're looking for help, but we're raring to go. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
this,
great.
I tell you, one of the great things about Grafton is that this town always comes together.
Yeah.
And they support each other. When Truth Organic Spa had that electrical fire, I mean, the town really came out and just came together.
Yeah.
Within hours after the thing, to start a GoFundMe to keep the proprietress, Julie, funded so that she could keep her staff going. Then somebody else came up and said, hey, you could use my space because we moved here, and they're breaking ground
We
on
experienced
things.
it as well, when we were doing Centec Park, and again, I'm going back in the dark ages, but when we were doing Centec Park, we had done this deal with Verilon, who, it's a draw tower, and they make ceramic, the last mile or whatever for that industry. And they were putting a 75-foot draw tower in the building at the end of Centennial Drive. and everything was going fine, and then when they figured out on the design of the sprinkler system for the draw tower, there wasn't enough pressure. There wasn't enough pressure in the water lines, so of course it's a private water company, so I had to go down, and the town of Grafton couldn't have been more supportive of coming together, and we figured out, we worked with the water department, and we worked with the sewer department, but we figured out how to get the right state money, and we made it a big priority, and we essentially cleaned out the lines in Westboro Road. You know, it was a $1.5 million project, but the developer, the end user of Avalon had already bought the property and were already far along. They were way into this. Construction contracts had been signed. They were deep into it, and they were nervous. They were like, well, what if we don't get this? You know, like, we're into this big, and we gotta get this done, and we're on a time frame and all this. The town really came together. We got the grant. The work got done. The town moved it really quick through the process. We worked closely with the Grafton Water District, is that what it's called, the Grafton Water. They was super, I remember Matt Pearson, it was great, it was really helpful. But the town really rallied around us. We came and presented the problem, we said, this is a problem, we need the help, and everybody helped, and it was
Well,
great. We got it
Grafton
done.
Grafton is very good like that.
Yeah.
You know, the
So we
residents,
experienced
the
that.
re-
We
you
really
know, so,
appreciate
we're energized. And, we're raring, you know, Grafton is open for business, that was one
Yeah.
of our
it.
slogans.
It's a good message.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Okay.
any other questions that anybody has or
No.
thoughts?
Not at the moment.
Well,
Okay.
if we can be helpful, we'd love to, you know, continue
Yeah,
to
so we'll.
come back to Grafton and play a role in any way we can.
Yes, well, we'll be reaching out
Okay,
and
great.
we'll
Yeah.
get you the flyer and all the particulars about the May 15th event, and we hope you can be there, and we'll definitely be in touch.
All right, very good, and
So-
make sure you tell Bob Hassinger I said hi.
I absolutely will.
Yes.
He'll remember me. He'll-
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you will.
Well,
He
thank you
remembers
so
everything.
much for
So great to
taking the
meet you
time
all.
to come
Yeah.
by, and
Great.
we'll be in touch.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, so nice to meet you, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you. Great to meet you, so nice
Take
to meet
care,
you.
yeah, same here.
Okay, all right, thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So that was very productive.
He's got an encyclopedia of knowledge.
I know, which, well,
Yeah.
this is the type of thing that we need.
If two things come to mind, and it's,
Speak up a little, so.
oh yeah, it's a big if. If the zoning wasn't such in front of Wyman Gordon's,
Yep.
subdivide, well, they've already divided the property, but subdivide the property in such a way that we could change, change the zoning on it, and possibly get someone
Yeah,
to take a second look or another look at it.
And it's not impossible to change the zoning, it's a town meeting vote.
Yeah.
So it
Mhm.
could be even a citizen's petition, granted, most likely for zoning type changes, they usually don't, from history, they don't pass to the planning board, doesn't support them, but especially if there's a proposal for something that could go in this, in a zone, or someone that wants to
Mhm.
build something in a zone,
Right.
that always also helps get things passed, if people are happy with it, like, to just use it as an example, an ice rink, if building an ice rink was something that was feasible and people were happy with, and that was suitable for that spot, which, I'm feeling an ice rink wouldn't be, but that's just my feeling, but anyway. Changing the zone to something that could support the ice rink would be, in my mind, something that would probably easily pass a town meeting.
Mhm.
Now, I think the bottom line the town wants to see is developments that help us, financially as a town,
Yeah.
and don't detract from the character of the town and help
And
don't-
quality of
and don't-
life,
yeah,
yeah.
and don't hurt the neighborhood that it's built in.
Yes, exactly.
The other thing that we need to look at is, as I mentioned, the Fisherville Mill site. I recently went by there and I saw some different heavy equipment in there. I don't know if, I'm assuming if you see a piece of equipment that something's happening, but maybe we can find out what, if anything, is happening, and maybe those folks might be, I don't know, go in and say, hey, listen, we know this guy, he can help you if you have, if nothing else, he's worth a conversation.
Yeah.
put the owners or whoever's involved in that property in contact with these different entities that he just mentioned,
Okay.
you know, and then, who knows? Something
William,
might come out
offhand,
of
do
it.
you know anything about Fisherville Mill? As far as what's going on there right now?
If it is what I'm thinking of, I believe they're doing an inspection of the dam that's back there.
Oh,
I don't know if they're doing any sort of hard construction.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And then, also while I think of it, just to kind of pivot a little bit, do you know if the current owners of the Worcester Street in front of Wyman Gordon parcel is on that business list? Because they would be good to make sure that we get at least an invite out to the current owners. They may
Yes.
they may not live near here, or they may not want to come out for it, but I would like to make sure we have a invite to them.
Whoever is the local real estate agent or whatever.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I would guess they're not on the business list because that list is only people who have a DBA on file with the clerk's office,
Okay.
not landholders or anything like that.
So then we drive by, we get the phone number off the sign that's on the lawn, and we say, hey, folks, give them a call, say, hey, folks, guess what we're doing, come on by.
And I'll say within once this flyer is printed out, I can grab one and throw it in the mail, physical mail to the address on file for the owners.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Sounds
can
good.
I can
Great
take
idea.
I can take on one stamp to do that.
can take
without a
one.
problem.
Before it goes up to 78 cents or
Exactly.
73 cents. Yes. Okay, so, can we move on to, circle back around to just finishing up, cause it's
Mhm.
now 8:12, so we wanna be mindful of everybody's
Sure.
time. About the spring event, so I think, Angela, did you have anything you wanted to add about?
Just for the spring event, I'm perfectly fine with receiving a list and doing the outreach. So
Mhm.
however this group deems best that you want to divide it up, I have no qualms. I'm happy to just do the work. So
Okay, Great.
sign me up for whoever you'd like me to do the outreach to, and I'll get that done.
yeah, I will call, I had spoken to Nicole about this, and I will call over to Jim McGovern's office, Dave Maradian's office, Mike Moore's office.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else we need to reach out to from official folks? We talked to Craig, who was here tonight, but
I would be surprised if anyone comes from this, but it may not hurt to just send a email or something to the governor's office. I would be surprised if they come, but it may not hurt.
yeah. Nothing ventured, nothing gained,
Yep.
That's
as
exactly.
my mother used to say.
And an email or just a no, they could ignore it. They could look at it and go, no, we're busy, or
Yeah.
Whatever.
Hey, it's worth a shot.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's it's worth a
Right.
shot.
Right.
Can't hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to do that.
Okay.
How about Tufts?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Tufts president probably would be the president's office is probably the best thing to send that to, which I'm sure someone has that
There's gotta-
contact.
It's gotta be somewhere.
They've gotta have an office
Yeah.
in their system for, like, say, community outreach or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So we'll get cracking on this in the next week,
Mm-hmm.
because we've got a month for the event,
Mm-hmm.
and that time will go very, very quickly,
Oh, yeah,
as
for
we
sure.
know. But Craig had everything well in hand.
Yeah.
And if we want to formally vote on this flyer that was put together, I'm quite happy with the one we saw in the email draft.
Yes, I am too.
So
Yeah.
I'll move that the EDC approve and ask to be printed this flyer for the event.
How many copies do you want?
Great question. Depends
See.
on how big your business list is. You gotta start with a minimum 55, say 100 at least.
Okay.
The business list is.
We had 355 on the
Yeah.
business list,
The business is 336 that I have.
yeah,
Okay.
There's several duplicates, so I would say, in my mind, either 300, 350 at least. That
Yeah.
way that we have,
yeah.
All right.
that's what I'm thinking. Do you have any professional thoughts, William? Would you want to do more just to have a stack sitting in the entryway of the municipal center?
Yeah, maybe you do a few extra, because then you put them in the municipal center, you put them in, you know, the library, places where people go often. But I think even if you do that, 300 is probably a good number, because
Mhm.
there's gonna be some you can't deliver in person,
Yep.
and we're also
Yeah.
doing the email blast, so
Okay.
people
Yeah.
can get it a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
And we can also put it on,
The social
we'll put-
medias, yes.
social media.
Yeah.
We'll put it on, the All Things, I guess we can put it on All Things Grafton page and
Mm-hmm.
And
things like that,
I'm not a member of the Grafton group, but that also exists. That could also
Yes.
be a good spot for it.
yes,
Well, it is an election year, and those that are running for offices can put it in theirs, maybe add it to their site.
yes,
I can see some of our select board wouldn't have a problem with that.
yeah,
I can imagine the ones that I know of that are active on social media would be more than happy to put them on.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a plan.
All right.
Angela, do you have any other suggestions?
I-
I feel like you're sort of out there in the ether and I don't wanna forget you.
Oh, no, I took the notes down on this. I agree. I think having them available at the library, at the municipal center, the flyers, it's really helpful. And my only concern is when we look at the list, I just wanna make sure that we're comprehensive in our outreach, and I think that that's agreed upon by the group, that
Mhm.
we're not missing businesses, so.
Mhm.
Nothing is perfect, but that we just make an honest effort to make sure we're reaching out to those businesses who are known and on
And-
file with our municipal center.
Okay, so today is April 16th. I would
Mhm.
move that by, April 25th, we have the flyers sent out. Actually, what I'd like to do is I'll send out emails so that, early next week, by mid next week, by the 23rd, because the 21st is a holiday.
Yep.
So, and the municipal building is gonna be closed.
Yeah.
So by the 23rd, I will have sent out an email and we can divvy up the list for our individual outreach.
Yep.
And what we're gonna do, who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
I will, compose what I'm doing. We can add that, but we want to get those, flyers out, printed up, who's doing what.
Yeah.
And by the 28th, the following week, we should probably have, an update. In other words, I'll put together a schedule.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's fine.
so that we'll get out a list, okay, by the 23rd, we're doing this, then get a progress update by the 28th, because
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
it's too easy for these things to fall through the cracks.
I might have some issues getting out next week, just considering it's a school vacation week.
Yeah, no problem, just so long as,
Yeah,
just so
I'll
long
keep
as
you
we're,
informed. I can communicate
Yeah.
by email, so that's
just so
fine.
long as we're
Yeah.
rocking and rolling
Yep.
by the week of April 28th, because most people are not
Sure.
gonna really start to think, I think people will show up. If they showed up January 26th,
Yeah.
2024, when it was
Right.
the dead, that was a cold
Right. Yeah.
night. They'll
Okay.
show up now in May.
So I do
Okay.
have a motion to actually formally approve that flyer.
Yeah.
Does
Yes,
someone want to
yes.
second it?
Second.
Okay.
Yep.
And we should probably roll
Third.
call the vote.
Okay, so, vote, yeah, I would,
Would I?
Yeah, we just need to have
You have a member remote,
Yeah,
so you
remote,
have to
so
do
you
a
have to
roll
do
call.
a
No, I
vote.
don't mean it that way. We just have to say we're gonna vote, we want the flyer.
Yeah.
we've approved the flyer, we wanna have it printed,
Yes.
okay?
Okay.
Yes,
I have that there's a motion and a second.
Are you in
Okay, so
favor?
I'm gonna say Angela, yes, in favor.
Sean, aye.
Laura DiDio, aye.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Then that's carried unanimously. I'm sorry for taking your steam, Angela, but carried unanimously.
Yes. Okay, does anybody have any other business?
No, well, I think, so we have a list, we're
Mhm.
going to call the list, and shall we highlight the businesses that we feel we can physically reach?
Yeah.
Yes,
And then, as I said before, once we get all the businesses highlighted, you know, and then whenever you have them available, just message us, and, you know, I can swing by or whatever.
Yeah.
We can
Okay.
swing by and just, as fast, not as fast, as soon as we can start hit the ground running,
yes,
and, you know,
yeah,
and then
And
we'll
we
go from
can-
there.
We can coordinate via email, and we don't have to be too procedural about
No,
how we
we're
select
just,
it,
we're
but
just gonna say, hey, I went here and I did this, that's all you have to
Yeah.
say.
yeah,
We're not worried about, no one's gonna come after us for
no,
being proactive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Very good.
Laura, just for my notes, do you have, just to make sure I heard it correctly, do we have anyone designated from the town who will be sending an email blast of the flyer out to the businesses? I just wanna make sure I have that correct in my notes.
I can do that.
yes, William was gonna do that.
Okay, great,
He's
thank you.
graciously agreed, and we've graciously accepted.
Yeah.
Isn't that generous and magnanimous of us?
We do.
William, would it be easy to have that list of places that we've emailed to cross-reference with the list of places to visit? So if we have to, like, time prioritization, we can say, if we didn't get to this business, it was emailed out, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Is that easy, or does that be hard?
It's easy-ish, so it's the emails we have are, if you go to the EDC webpage,
Yep.
under the directory, it's those 55 businesses, so anybody can see those.
Oh, okay.
Ah. But I can see if I can pull like a spreadsheet or something
Yeah.
like that.
If there's
from the
something super
website.
easy to do, that's fine. If not, I think we can all look at the list. It's not like it's 1,000
Mhm.
places to cross-reference.
I have a quick question. The Congregational Church has the thrift shop there.
mm-hmm.
Is that something, would we include them if they have a thrift shop, which is, you know, that falls 501c3, but, you know,
To me, 501c3 businesses are still a business.
okay,
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
you know,
Sure.
And we have, you know, the Unitarian Church, they do some things, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Can't hurt to let them know.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, okay, so that's
All
good. If, does anybody have any other business? No,
No,
okay.
not business, no?
No,
So then, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Aye,
Sean,
Would I?
Would you?
Angela, HUI.
okay, we are
All right.
adjourned.